I can't blame women for feeling scared and raising the bar, because you get these folks like insert politician here who's done all these terrible stuff. It's all public, and then they get 58% of the vote, right? I mean, you got these folks like the Supreme Court of the United States is becoming an enemy of our nation because they don't hold anyone's values. I guess their own values only. They don't hold any of the American people's values. You have 3, I would say, sane Supreme Court justices. And if you read some of their dissents on the decisions that have happened recently, it's sad. These are lawyers, career politicians. They're usually pretty stark and bland. But the kind of the way that they're verbalizing their concern isn't something that we as Americans on either side of the aisle should ignore, because it's never happened before. I could talk for an hour on all of the most recent developments. I won't do that, but I can understand why women don't feel safe. They're getting their rights ripped away as if it were, the 1800s and you were a black person who we thought were safe. In my opinion, I was like, okay, white conservative men won't mess with white women's rights. I was very wrong. They've taken away Roe v. Wade. They're rewriting the way that the checks and balances system in our country works. And I'm trying to be very calm when I say this, because I don't want to instill fear, because there's enough of that in the media, right? There's enough of that. I think this is the time to pay attention, when it is so easy to turn your brain off and say, I can't control this. You can't do anything directly without choosing violence, but you can vote for folks that you know what they're about. The reality is, this is the time all Americans, right, left, black, white, need to pay attention, because these politicians are showing us exactly who they are and exactly what they are going to do. We have no reason not to trust them at face value that they're going to do the terrible things they say they're going to do. And if you want to let it make you angry, that's one option, or you can get calculated about it and think about your democracy. I'll leave it at that. I could talk for hours. I know I'm 15 minutes in, but that's what's been on my mind outside of work and family and such. I don't feel safe in this country, and I'm 6'2", like I can hold my own. Jim's seen me shoot. I ain't really pressed about it, but I worry that I might not be able to raise kids in the America I grew up in. And that's a rough pill to swallow at 26 years old.
Yeah, that's really tough. Do you think, I know that people have, I don't want to, get too far off track, but
hey, if you want to make this Oops All Politics, we can. This is your podcast too, buddy.
That's fair. Well, I'm curious, because, a lot of people have been like, okay, well, and again, we don't want to alienate people and whatever, so I'm not going to, name drop, but, a lot of people have been like, oh, well, this divisiveness in politics is a symptom of our culture and all this kind of thing. What do you think, is the cause of the root? If we were to really dig into the roots, is this a social media thing where news has to, absolutely.
Can I be blunt? And maybe if we have to cut this, so be it. I'm talking to my buddy right now. I think during the 2016 election, we stopped being tough on Russia and China, not militarily, but we decided to ignore the idea of cyber warfare, and we forgot as Americans that propaganda is very real and we are not immune to it. In this algorithmic, click rate world, even the media, and when I say the media, I mean news companies, right? These massive news companies who at one point, their job was to deliver news to the American people so that they can make their informed opinions. I could say that was probably when we were kids. After these elections where we start learning that, okay, we have court documents that prove beyond reasonable doubt that Chinese and Russian counterparts are, what we would call quote unquote foreign adversaries. The governments have been seeding, political campaigns where it's bots, it's fake accounts. You can go on applications like Cyabra and pay them to pretty much look at the entire history of a social media account to see if it does what deceptive imagery or, if they're trying to lie to the people. And when you start looking at that in mass, all they have to do is be loud for one group, and then other folks will retweet it. They won't fact check it. They'll retweet it and retweet it. And then all of a sudden you have this rage bias where everyone's pumping their fists in the air. But this is the same group of folks, at least I can say on the right, I love my counterparts on the right because we got to remember that they're Americans too, even if they've lost their way recently. And if we lose people because of this, so be it. It's okay to say you've been brainwashed. Here's the reality. China and Russia would love nothing more than to further divide this country so that we cannot react to when they do something militarily that needs a quick response, that needs America to be that, if you're going to say you're this strong and no one else is going to stand up against these dictators and authoritarians, that's what America's role in the world has been since World War II. Whether we like it or not, that's the role that we've played up to. I think folks forgot that 2016 happened. There's Chinese and Russian and probably other groups that their only goal is to seed misinformation and get you to press retweet, get you to like it, get you to share it with your buddies because it makes you angry. And I think that is the root cause of all of this, for lack of better words, delusion, where 2 years ago, well, I would say 2 presidencies ago, they got on Obama for wearing a tan suit during Easter. And because there was nothing else to talk about during that period of time, it was boring and it was good. But now I'm watching this debate just objectively as an American. And on one half, I got this senile old man just lying his teeth off. And on the other half, I got this senile old man who might be trying his best. But reality is I have to wonder who's running the country, if not him.
Yeah.
I'm going to get real personal. As a black person in this country who's seen a Trump presidency and seen what he has ignited his loyal fans to do, I'm going to talk directly to the MAGA folks. Trump doesn't care about you, and it breaks my heart. I would love to be angry and just say, fuck you, whatever. No, you're Americans too, and you were lied to. And I don't think anyone's brave enough to sit there and talk to what used to be their friends and say, have you stepped back from politics for any amount of time since he was around? Like, I understand being angry. Trust me, I understand the rage. I understand it every day. But at no point have I been, it's all about Biden. It's all about Trump. These are just 2 people they're just the 2 options we were given. It's impossible for me to believe that you are so disillusioned that you can look past all of this stuff. It's one of those things. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Fool me 3, 8, 10, 15 times. At a certain point, you're not getting fooled. You're just going with whatever your phone tells you to think. And I think this is a time in American history where Americans need to remember the whole reason we left England in the first place. It was to have a choice. It was to have a choice. I don't have to agree with the side that wins to at least feel like I should be safe or feel safe in my own country. I shouldn't have to worry about folks inciting this violence or speaking about a race war in 2020s is ridiculous to me. If you read the Project 2025 stuff, I don't see how you can call yourself a patriot. It's honestly insulting to the folks that went and died for this country. The folks that died during 9/11. I hate to say it, Jim, but in my opinion, and I must say, I am not a political scientist. That is not my goal. I am a concerned voter at this point. What I see and the problem I see, it's going to take a foreign adversary actually attacking the domestic United States for us to get our heads out of our ass long enough to realize your neighbor's not your enemy. And that is a dangerous game. It's the same way the Nazi regime went from a fairly right political party to what we know in history today, a genocidal group who, there's no excuse. We've seen this picture before. We've seen this before. If it was the first time it happened, I can almost give humanity the benefit of the doubt. But this is a recurring theme in history with authoritarian regimes. If America fails at democracy this year, it is foolish for us to expect other countries that are holding on to democracy by a thread will want to.
Yeah. I do wonder, because this is interesting to me as well, because I'm going to go on a little bit of a different clip.
Send it.
But I think one of the key, questions that we as Americans have to answer, and I think part of this is also that it's so difficult, is that it's currently, for whatever reason, I feel like it's very difficult to form a national consensus on anything. Mm-hmm. And in part because it's so toxic to try to work across the aisle. People are actively, I'll admit my own biases as well. Most of this type of criticism that I'm hearing about is really coming from Republicans and stuff, but I'm sure that Democrats are also guilty of this. But basically, like when somebody tries to reach across the aisle to work, their colleagues are just like slamming them down.
Yeah.
You know,
and it's common stuff too, Jim. That's the thing that I never thought I'd live to see a day where a majority in Congress on the Republican side, the ones that they told about patriotism and they love the troops, they voted against veterans care no less than 3 times since I've been paying attention.
yeah,
Right? They've voted against all of these bills that folks have been fighting for since around 2001 to help folks. I'll leave it at this too. There's a difference between saying something like we are all aware. I don't think the American people are stupid. I don't.
No.
I think we're immune to propaganda like anyone else. I don't think we're stupid. I think we need to get back to a place where we go based on what they do. You can say all you want in the speech and it can sound real good. But if I look on that yay versus nay vote on C-SPAN, because I'm sitting here at 26 fucking watching C-SPAN just to see how fucked we are. And I'm very upset about this, Jim. This has been something that I don't feel right in my spirit not talking about it. So if this episode isn't about engineering, which, 24 minutes in, if they're still watching, maybe we come back tomorrow and record another one, right?
I'm here for it.
But I think as intellectuals, and I'm not trying to say that, big Jim Derrick, big smart. No, as folks who are willing to think objectively about their country and care about it.
Yeah. I think part of the problem too is like when we talk to the other side, whether that be the left or the right, and I'll admit I'm kind of a centrist, so maybe like I'm kind of wimping out here, but like I do think that there is this tendency to just completely shut down and not look at that other person as an American and as somebody who also loves the country.
We're demonizing them because, and you have to ask yourself, Jim, that same point, who stands to gain to us as Americans, as a general group of one, United States, who stands to benefit the most of our infighting? You ask yourself that question objectively, and then the answer becomes very clear. All of these foreign adversaries, as Americans, we jumped out of Afghanistan, and we're back into 3 or 4 proxy wars in different regions. Taiwan, Ukraine, Russia. Now we have this situation in Gaza. It's inexcusable. Like, you can be allies and tell your allies that you've gone too far. Yeah. Our allies have done that for us, and that is way more beneficial than kissing the ring every time America goes and drone strikes someone where they didn't do their due diligence. I mean, I'm going to lose some folks here, but it is okay not to agree with everything that your side, and I'm using big quotes there, your side of the government uses. If you're over the age of 25 and you believe any of these politicians have your best interests at heart, you're already lost. It's worth at least looking at objectively. Right now, I'm voting between the less of 2 evils. I think under a new Trump presidency, if he does what he said he was going to do with all of these Supreme Court decisions that are actually entertaining the idea of the president being immune as long as it's an official act, this is a very serious moment in our democracy, because it's a rule that was written. If you read like Federalist 69, I'm going way back to Hamilton writing up, what does it mean to be an American? What does it mean to have a working and active democratic republic? And they go through these arguments, and we're going against the very core of what it means to be a democratic state. And folks are clapping. Like, we can talk about January 6th because that's an important event in our history, right? I just want to put it in the Republicans' court for a second. If that were Russian agents jumping into your capital, would you have reacted the same? And you don't have to answer us directly. Ask yourself, is it because you saw what looked like you, Americans? Or was it because, did you not have a problem with it because you forgot about what it means to be a democracy? Now, I'm not saying, I think both sides are wrong. I think both sides are wrong. I do think one is more dangerous than the other, in my opinion. But that's the key. I've looked at the data. I've looked at the facts. I've been awake the last, 8 years. It's impossible not to look. China and Russia want nothing more than for you to check out. They want nothing more than for you to say, you know what, there's nothing I can do. Let me not even vote, right? You're giving them exactly what they want. Because if they can seed that in your head in your early 20s, or I guess you first start voting at 18, 20, when you're young, folks, the reality is there hasn't been a president that's looked like us in a long time. The closest we got was what, the Obama Romney. They were kind of young. They were like in their 40s, 50s. And I think that's a good age. You're old enough to have been in politics for a while, but sharp enough to react. If you get woken up at 3 a.m. about an attack on an American naval vessel, will you be able to make a sound and concise judgment that doesn't escalate things out of control? These are serious questions we have to ask. And when I'm looking at Biden and Trump, I don't see that. I see on the one hand, someone who is really just trying to save his own ass. It's the school bully who got caught. And now he's trying to get enough folks in the school to start pumping their fists to take the eyes off of him. On the other hand, the Democrats should be fucking disgusted with themselves. I put myself in Joe Biden's family's, I try to put myself in their shoes. For reference, I caretake a 90-year-old person. He turns 90 next week, right? And I would be ashamed of myself if I let my grandfather go up on that stage over and over in that condition, knowing that he needs help. It's just, I have to look at it from both ends. What do we look like to our allies right now? What do we look like to our enemies? If I were Vladimir Putin, and this is a strong statement, so forgive me if I get canceled. If I was Vladimir Putin, I'd attack next year. There is nothing that America's given me to show that they are going to have a united front on anything. If it's going to take 2 months to declare war on somebody because Congress can't get their act together, I'm not saying war is ever the answer, but if it comes to that, or we're in a Cuban Missiles Crisis style thing, and this is the reality, I want someone sharp enough to make an informed decision for all of us, not just the ones that'll vote for me next time.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a stupid political view to have. I feel like the bar has never been lower.
You know, this is actually kind of brings it back to, because I've had this thought before, right? Of like, 2020 was a really tight race. But it was very close. But I kind of feel like Joe Biden, I kind of feel like any Democratic like candidate probably could have beaten Trump. But I feel like Joe Biden there were definitely better choices in my opinion. Does that make sense? I
tend to agree with you there. I think the Democratic Party dropped the ball, right? Here's the thing. On one hand, let's just say Joe was a little sharper than he is now.
He was. I mean, like, I think
look
you
at
can't
the footage.
deny that.
Look at the footage of the first debate between Trump and Biden. Look at the one we just saw. These are two different men. Luckily, I mean, I guess not luckily, but all of the eyes were on one side of this debate because Joe Biden set up this debate in his, by his own terms. The Democratic Party allegedly, prepared him at Camp David for 4 or 5 days for this. And you can't tell me that all these smart motherfuckers in the government can't understand that two old men probably don't need to fight after 9 p.m. That's a 3 a.m. That's a 3 p.m. debate in my head. If you're both going to be as old as molasses, like maybe have the thing midday after you get your prune juice so that we can at least have an idea of what we're getting into.
That's fair.
On the other hand, I have to accept my bias and let the folks know. When I'm looking objectively at a Trump presidency, I'd rather vote for Joe Biden in a coffin than vote for Trump. That's my personal opinion. I'm not saying it's the opinion of all or most. But when I look at that Project 2025 shit, I'd rather vote for Kamala Harris as the I'm voting for the president, but I'm really voting for the vice president. Yeah. And that is a sad fucking reality at 26 years old when you're supposed to be looking up to these people. And I'm ashamed. I think the Democrats should be ashamed of letting it get this far. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
No, because I think this is actually an interesting follow-up, right? Because the Democratic they decided not to have a primary this past year.
They put all their chips on the board and said, okay, that's what we're going with.
I think, and I think that people have criticized the Democratic Party for this, and I think they are completely right to do so. That is like hilariously undemocratic to just not even have a primary. especially when I think like it
you've seen incumbents
you
do
know?
this before, though.
yeah,
You've
that's
seen
true.
incumbent. I understand it from both sides. Would I have liked the primary? Yes. Do I think anything would change if they did have a primary? I don't.
Yeah,
I
probably not.
really don't. Just looking at, I mean, I know polls in this country, is like we were talking about a little bit earlier, algorithmic, right? If I set up a bot that's going to go look for every Fox News and every CNN poll and just spit crap at it with email masked, responses, folks are going to start getting comfortable when they really shouldn't. So my advice to anyone our age, left, right, I don't care what side, I'm talking to you as an American, or if you're one of our foreign adversaries, you're getting a look at some of the conversations that not everyone's having.
They don't have to be an adversary.
Oh, great. I see where my mind's at?
It's okay.
Always, it's not binary, right? It's not binary. I don't think that there is an objective good or evil on this. I think one side is going on the road to fascism, and I think that needs to be called out for what it is. So I can live my life knowing I called it as I saw it. Yeah. But on the other hand, I'm not going to go kiss the Democratic Party's ass because I'm not happy with them either. It's just when I'm ranking these things from top to bottom. January 6th, coup on our Capitol. The guy's fucked a porn star while his wife is pregnant, gotten caught about it, and now has the tools, due to his Supreme Court nominations, to wipe all this under the table and never see accountability ever. Right when he was at the precipice of seeing accountability. It makes me sick to my stomach, Jim.
Yeah.
Because I think about if it were Biden doing all this crime, and even if let's just say I was Joe's biggest fan, I got the sticker on the truck and everything, I'd still want him to see justice. Because the whole point of the Constitution, one of the many points, is that no man is above the law. No office is above the law.
That's
and
right.
If you go take a civics course, and this would be my test for them, I would love everyone in Congress to do a televised civics test.
Ooh.
3rd grade, 4th grade.
Very basic.
Very basic. Now, note, some of these guys are lawyers. I want to see if, when it boils down to it, if I can have you write down your truth, are you willing to lie in front of the American people for something you know intimately? The oath you took. All of these congressmen and folks, all of these SCOTUS folks, they took an oath. And almost every oath, though they're not the same, is to uphold the Constitution, whether you're the president or some local senator. And I'm not seeing that nowadays. I don't think it should be red versus blue right now. I think it should be democracy versus the alternative. The Democratic Party fucked up by not giving us an option.
Yeah.
If you're going to wait until July to do your power play and you fail, you can't tell me that you didn't have a plan B. You can't lie to me to my face and say that Joe Biden's as sharp as you're saying he is, and he can't make it an hour and a half on TV. He might have sharp moments. That's fine. Show me that footage. You know what I mean? On the other hand, I'm going to go towards the Reds for a little bit now. Folks, the Republican Party, all my life you've told me you got to be a patriot, you got to support the troops, but you're throwing away the very fundamentals of the very stuff that you argue in Congress about. There's clips. The difference nowadays is that we have clips. All of these senators have been caught in a lie.
Yeah.
No one's above the law. No, when they're talking about Hunter Biden's laptop, all of a sudden it's about the law. When it's about Trump, he can do no wrong. How dare you call yourself a Christian when you're holding up this motherfucker like Jesus Christ? Jesus Christ could come down from heaven today and y'all would say anything against him to support Trump. I believe that in my heart of hearts. Y'all have done everything except for build a temple to this motherfucker.
Have you heard that song that's oh gosh, I don't even know. It's written in a very like gospel tone, right? Like,
is it this lady
song.
That's a famous Republican who's dropping like I don't know what you call it. What's the white version of rap?
Yeah, I
like
don't know.
Saran wrap, I guess.
Saran wrap, yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, it's basically like calling Trump the chosen one and all this stuff.
Y'all are doing everything except for, like...
And like that, to me, is what's scary about it, is this fanatical cult that's been built up around this guy.
If you look on the FBI website or the National Security website and you look, there's like a list of threats, right? They put out a report, I think twice a year, where they talk about threats. The last 4 years, one of the highest threats for the United States that they tell travelers is the potential of domestic terrorism. Never in our history has it been that. It's been terrorism. It's been, flash groups of folks. But now, in the history, I'm just talking in the times, this is what, July 5th. It was the day after Independence Day. So a lot of Americans were able to think objectively about, what it means to be free. Our independence from Britain. Some folks took the lesson. Some folks, yesterday was a very somber day, if I'm being honest. Even if you don't, you can go out and grill and have a good time with your family. But, the day after I had to go to work and I'm sitting there thinking, wow, what did we do to get to this point? And to answer your question from earlier, I do think it is, it's foreign adversaries and cyber warfare. It is the inability, let me put it simply, the same group of parents that every year told you can't believe everything you see on TV. You can't believe everything you see on TV. They will lie to you. Are absorbing Facebook, YouTube, TikTok information with no fact check. If it's on Fox News, they believe it. If you're on the left, it's on CNN, they believe it. These folks have a responsibility. Journalism is one of the last bastions to truth when it comes to politics. And we, as the American people, all of us, have been done a disservice. All of us. And it's the only reason I'm so passionate about it is because I worry for my neighbor who won't believe me. I worry for the folks that'll follow Donald Trump all the way down the path. And once you get to the end of the road, you realize the sad fucking truth. He don't give a damn about you. He don't care about your family. He doesn't care about your family members that served. And when it boils down to it, he would sooner throw them to cannon fodder to be right than actually step back and say, this is what the American people want, let me listen to them. Was that not the whole point of public discourse? That's the whole point of a debate. It's not to scream at each other. It's to talk through these very real problems. Why is it the only moment that I watched the debate 3 times. I'm not lying. Because it bothered me that much. I watched it live. I watched it again. And then some kind of fucked up masochism, I had to watch it another time just to make sure I wasn't dreaming. And the only time that both of those candidates were actually alive and vivid and, they're pumping their fists in the air, actually passionate about something, they're talking about golf. They're talking about their golf handicaps. There are moments in American history that I won't forget. The handling of the pandemic is one of them. As a biologist, that was something that really streamlined me into not trusting my government more than I already did. And then I saw the reaction. Then they started lying to scientists saying, oh, this isn't what happened. No, nigga. I got the exact I got all the documentation. I had to go and try to keep people safe because you wouldn't. When my labs were begging other companies for gloves, begging our rivals because we couldn't produce enough gloves to do the science that we have to do to keep y'all safe. Believe in the science or not, the reality is scientists save y'all's lives. For every person that got sick, there was another person that survived because they took the vaccine. And the fact that it's been, 4 years and we're still talking about it like it's a conspiracy, I think that's just another testament to the power of foreign propaganda in our media. And the idea that unless either A, the morbid part, the older folks in our generation die off. And then we're in a world where it's mostly folks that have grown up with a computer. But I worry that that's not enough. I don't think it is. You have computer scientists that are...
I think especially with the rise of AI, like the believability of a lot of this stuff is just so good that it's going to be really hard to actually determine what's right and what's true and what is false. That's one of the things I'm most concerned about with AI, especially, to kind of bring it full circle, because we kind of mentioned, the president's playing video games as being a really fun bit and a good joke. And I have laughed at a number of those. I'm sure you have as well. But I think the reality, like the fact that we very honestly, people can put together believable footage and audio of people saying things that they have never said, right? Is really quite alarming.
It's the truth. And I have to bring this up as hard as it is to talk about. Women are getting a bad shake in this. Some women are getting doxxed. because, a angry ex or something feeds some, pictures they took of themselves, like, as a couple. Something I trusted you with. It doesn't even have to be inappropriate. Just pictures of my face and your face together into these programs and made nudes of them. This is not new, but the technology that is making it this realistic is enough to ruin a career. And as you've seen, Jim, it doesn't matter what's true in America anymore. It matters who's loudest. There are still... Do you remember, what is it called when a newspaper would have to, make corrections? They would, the next day, if they found out that something they said was false, they'd make corrections. Some news companies are still doing that. It's just that's not the thing that goes viral. That's not the thing that gets 1 million clicks.
You're right.
People made their minds up the second they saw it on Instagram. They didn't look it up. They didn't look up if it's true or not. And some people, shame on you if this is you, they use this material to weaponize women's bodies against them out of spite. So no, like when it comes to the loneliness epidemic, I can understand why some women don't want to deal with some men. It makes sense to me. Because if I was in their position, I wouldn't have been as calm as they have been. If I am walking, I'm looking at this Roe v. Wade thing objectively. I don't have a daughter. I don't have any kids. I don't have any sisters. But I'm just thinking of it, colleagues. I've watched women I truly care about cry. Like, folks that don't usually cry because they're scared. Because they don't know, in the event that the worst case scenario happens to them and they survive, they're going to have to take their rapist kid to term? For what? None of these bills regarding women's health are written by women or doctors. And that's sick. What's the point of having a committee full of idiots? For what, political power? No. You had doctors there. America is going to experience the same kind of brain drain. And when I say brain drain for the listener, I'm talking about your smartest and brightest going somewhere else so they can do their work objectively. If you're a scientist and you want to study vaccines, instead of having to deal with the American freaking political system that's going to stop you, you go work for Sweden because at least they'll give you a fair shake if you're good at your job. So you can do the research that you think is going to save some lives down the line. America's going to experience a brain drain if they're not careful. And I think it's already happened. Because, do you remember in the pandemic, there was this doctor lady, I can't remember her name admittedly, so much time has passed, but it was the main doctor for like the White House coronavirus group, the committee they made. And, this Trump guy, he's like, we've talked about, injecting bleach into the body or using a very strong light. And I watched this career scientist die live on TV. I watched a face that I make at work when, I used to work for a company and the CEO, he was an anti-vaxxer. We're fucking making, we're producing COVID tests. And you're an anti-vaxxer.
I remember the clip that you're talking about.
This lady's she did everything short of putting her hands in her head.
I think
she tried to be professional.
I'm not sure, but I think it's Dr. Brix, Dr. Deborah Brix.
BRIX or something like that?
Yeah, I think BIRX.
BRIX? That sounds right. And I'm just looking at it. This lady who has gone to school. She has Deborah done research. Political sides, like let's say political bias aside, whether you're with her or against her, this is someone who came to the challenge of something America hadn't seen since the Spanish flu.
Yeah.
And I watched this lady, I'm not going to say lose hope because that's not fair to her to assume, but I watched her face. It was very clear, and it's a moment I won't forget as a scientist the rest of my life, because that's how I felt. That's how I felt in the lab, listening to the freaking news in one ear and having to pause production because we're sitting here watching what we thought at the time was our system failing. We thought we were seeing the end of us getting a logistical pipeline to get the materials we need to do science. We thought this was the government abandoning us. And we were thinking, how do these private companies manage by themselves? How do we support the supply chain so this work that's so important at the time can be done? These mRNA vaccines genuinely save the world. And those scientists are getting doxxed. For what? For saving you? For saving your grandma who didn't want to be saved? It's sickening, Jim. And I look at all these, America has a lot of problems, and I think it's worth talking about, because to hear a bunch of old fuckers on CNN and Fox and MSNBC or whatever, Newsmax, talking about it, it feels a little bit untrue, because they can't be critical of the opposite side. The closest thing I've seen to the Democrats being critical of Biden was the day after, actually the hours after his debate performance. All of a sudden, all these same motherfuckers who are just like, when I'm in closed doors with him, he's sharp as a devil, you know? Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's like, I think after what we saw tonight, we should think about a new candidate. No, it's too late for that. That's something you talk about in February. So now I'm looking as a concerned citizen, Democrats and Republicans who still haven't kissed the ring. What are you going to do about it? Jim told you, Trump lost by a very short margin the last time. It was what, 48 to 52 after the dust settled, give or take?
No, I don't know the exact numbers.
With a 1 to 2% error, it was tight. Think about all the folks that were voting with confidence in Biden back then. So now, as a black person who takes care of his family, who is the patriarch of his household now, whether I like it or not, I don't have anyone else. It's me. At the end of the day, I have to prepare my family for 4 years of Trump and what that means in Georgia. I like to, on both hands. On one hand, I want to hope for the best. But at the end of the day, I'm a Boy Scout, and they taught me something important a long time ago. Be prepared. It would be foolish of me to stop listening when intelligence is so rare and having an honest conversation. I want to talk to Republicans. I want to talk to these MAGA people because they're Americans too. I want to have this. Back in the day, you could go in the bar and, have public discourse and, your buddy are buying beers for each other, play some darts and we go our separate way. We can agree to disagree. Now,
I think this is maybe an interesting discussion because I think to a large extent, like our public discourse spaces have moved online, right? Largely.
It's a shame. Like Twitter, right? Largely. That's the main place, I think.
Twitter, Instagram. I mean, but even, I guess it's X now, but I ain't
respecting that. I'm dead naming his company. If Elon Musk is going to dead name his trans, children, I'm going to dead name his stupid company. I don't give a fuck about Elon Musk.
That's fair. But so Twitter, there's Twitter, but also, as you said, YouTube is actually the second largest search platform in the world.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of our public discourse is actually happening on these global institutions, right? Because, and like you said, it is extraordinarily unprotected from foreign adversaries, foreign actors, propaganda that's happening.
Botnets, all of it.
Botnets, absolutely. Botnets that could be foreign or domestic also. Yeah. And I'm curious because I don't think that I have a very deep concern because I do think that is a large part of the issue. I think there might be other parts of the equation, but I think that the destruction, what do you call it? The failure of our public discourse has had a huge impact on our ability to talk to one another and form consensuses. Because I think what is really at the heart a lot of the vehement anger on both sides of the aisle is the inability for us as Americans to figure out what that means. What does it mean to be an American? What does it mean to be part of this country? And where do we want to go as Americans? Because as you said, we've been the leaders of the free world for arguably 6 decades. I think that's fair to say.
I think it's fair to say since World War I, we made our place on the global stage. World War II, we kind of solidified it as I hate to use the term because it's usually used derogatory, but freedom police, right?
Yeah.
When fascism comes and pops up, who's going to be there supporting your small country? It's going to be NATO. It's going to be the Americans.
Right. And I think what we're seeing, because this has also boggled my mind, right? Because
Tell me about it.
we're seeing this huge reversal to a large extent. Because I remember growing up and George W. Bush being on the on screen about how America is the protector of the free world and the protector of democracy. And then like to hear Trump talking about like pulling out of NATO and like,
I could
and
talk
like,
about that for hours.
And like that to me is like, and this is the Republican Party, right?
You're the ones that told us to care about supporting the troops, building a strong military. But now here's the difference. Before you were saying it, and at least a majority of you would vote for the thing. Even if you disagree with whatever folks try to slip in there, you'd fight for those fundamental values that were at one point conservative values. Conservative values have changed. Jim, you hit the nail on the head.
And
How
I think
can
like
I support a president who in the most contentious time threatens to pull out of NATO because other countries haven't been paying their GDP percentage of defense?
Like they're
That's
not pulling
not new.
Yeah, like they're not pulling their weight. So what? We're just going to leave Ukraine to the Russians? Like,
Let me give you a small example. If let's just say the Western Front of a new war would be Ukraine. Let's just say hypothetically the Western Front for NATO would be Ukraine. How does a French troop get to Ukraine? Has anyone sussed that out?
I mean, I think there are people who are working on the logistics of that. But
who are those people? It's the United States of America. More than we are a standing army, more than we're the biggest air forces in the world, we are the largest logistical capacity when it comes to military.
I think we're just the largest logistical period.
Everything's palletized. Ramstein Air Force Base is an Air Force base in Germany. A United States-run Air Force base. It is the staging ground for most NATO operations. This is very public. It's French troops, British troops on our planes, getting on our vehicles to get to the front. Now you're saying, because you're a little upset, as a president, you're going to threaten to take that piece away. You're setting up a Russia-China victory, uncontested. If you think after seeing Vladimir Putin's behavior in Crimea in 2014, President Obama didn't do anything. I think he's one of the better presidents we've had. I have notes. Not everyone's perfect. That's a part of public discourse. He made a mistake not pressuring Russia, especially when you have folks like Condoleezza Rice, who studied in Moscow to be that person who can understand Russian culture enough to actually make an effective argument on why we're pushing back. These aren't threats. These are our policy decisions. Fast forward to the future. Ukraine would have gotten wiped without American. I think that's common knowledge now. They weren't prepared. We gave them up. And now you're saying we're going to abandon them? How dare you? To think that Putin's going to stop at Ukraine? Putin has told us for the better part of the 20 years of his reign, it is his fate to restore the Soviet Union. Easy to say, hard to think about. That means all of these NATO countries who in the last 2 decades have joined NATO and are bordered with Ukraine. Like, you think Hungary's not next? You think Poland's gonna go after all the stuff that's happened to Poland the last 2 world wars? They've been the
Baltic states.
Come on, man. Finland and Sweden can't agree on shit. But they agreed to go into NATO after this attack. That is a stronger statement than any of the other noise, in my opinion. The fact that they were able to put down their differences enough to say, okay, this is top priority. Not that we want to fight Russia. We're making sure that when the fight starts, we have a team.
Yeah.
It's cruel. I mean, it begs the question, Jim. Americans torture themselves or choose not to. I will say they either absorb the news and try to make sense of it, and it's torture. It hurts. It's not pleasant. I shouldn't have to go on a debate and then watch CNN and Fox News just to understand what the 2 pieces of media are spitting to the masses. What talking points am I going to hear repeated tomorrow? There is no public discourse, like you said. And you know why? Where it used to be, you could go to your city council meeting or whatever and have a controlled, albeit boring conversation. You can have the conversation nonetheless. Is being replaced with extremists who just want to be seen. Yeah. And to prove our point, I'm not going to release a video version of this podcast if we as a group of 2 choose to release it. This might just be something for the archives. I don't know if it's even worth I have to ask you after we stop. But I think having groups of folks like us, even though we're not professionals, we're voting Americans from two different sides. If you're centrist, I'm more liberal. You know, I need the folks on the right to be willing to have a conversation. That's, I guess, you know, not keyboard warrioring.
Yeah, I guess, and let me clarify a little bit, because I think when I say that I'm centrist, what I really mean is that I don't feel like I am represented at all, really, by either side. Because I think if I right now were transported back to 2003, let's say, I feel like for the most part, and okay, like honestly, like I don't want to discount like the culture war stuff, because
speak your truth, Jim.
I do believe that, okay, this is going to, maybe I'll get canceled now. Like, I do believe that, you know, gay people should have the right to marry. I do believe that like trans people should be protected from aggression based on their sexual orientation and stuff like this. But I don't think that as a nation, those are the like pivotal existential topics that really matter right now. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, because here's the thing: they're weaponized,
and yeah, exactly.
If it were purely altruistic, where it's just like, I want, like, not me, but like if I'm the party or any party, and I'm saying I agree with gay rights, and just to get an applause versus, hey, these are people, these are human beings who deserve basic human rights, and what I'm seeing as a citizen is not only are they being attacked physically. Not only are they being threatened, but now you're using rhetoric that starts to not talk about them as people. If you start looking objectively at what these state governments have put out against trans folks, I can understand why, if you're LGBT or trans or gay, you're terrified. It makes sense to me. It might not be the top priority, but I have to look at it from their point of view. If it were just, and let me be very cautious when I say this. Let's say that there wasn't violence being threatened at all. Hypothetically, this is a hypothetical. But this is the main thing we're pushing. Then I could agree, okay, maybe a little pushback, maybe time and place. Because I don't want to be the person that says, wait your turn. That's not fair. That's not what America's about.
Right.
But I see where they're coming from, because they're being threatened, because their rights are actively getting written. If some of these farther right people could have it their way, they would exterminate trans people. And that's disgusting.
Probably true.
I'm not saying that because it's my idea. I'm using the rhetoric they've put down. How can you say that you're a parent, and if your child chooses to do that, you're going to stop loving them? That's not love in the first place. I look at these folks, and Jim, I don't think you're wrong. I agree. I am ashamed. And this is hard to say. I'm ashamed to be a Democrat right now, because they let this happen. And the reality is, it's not my responsibility as a citizen to do anything more than vote for people that I think have our best interests at heart. And folks on both sides have proven they'd rather be right than be good.
Yeah. And I guess that's like where I am, is because, like, you know, I think about the politicians that kind of I grew up with, right? You know, you look at Obama, you look at, you know, John McCain, you look at even Mitt Romney back, you know.
I didn't see either of them as a threat. Even if I didn't agree with one, I wasn't like, oh, if Romney wins, it's the end. You know,
exactly.
It's just like, okay, cool. You know, we'll vote for, we'll get Obama next time if he keeps doing his thing.
And to me, it's what breaks my heart about it, I guess, is that like we've been, I feel like we've devolved, right? Like I feel like we've moved backwards, and, you know, rather than being able to have, you know, conversations about like what AI is doing to our society and what we should do about it as a government, we're stuck talking about like, you know, people like, you know, should people be legally required to call somebody he or she or whatever, right? And to me,
we're focused on instead of focusing on the forest, we're focusing on the tree.
Yeah, and like to me, you know, I think it's a matter of respect for that other person. Like you got to call them, you know, what they ask you to, but like that's not something that we should be having a discussion about enforcing from a legal standpoint.
That's my point. That's my whole. You just hit the nail on the head, Jim. Yeah. Some things are not the government's responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that like on both sides of the aisle, the Democrat side and the Republican side, they are trying to use the government as a way to enforce their cultural ideals that, especially the more radical ones, don't actually line up with the vast majority of what this country wants.
I want my Gramps a vet, right?
Yeah.
If he needs healthcare, I want him to be able to get it.
Yes.
If we get attacked, I want to know that our government's up for the task. And for the life of me, I just can't understand why we're unable. Like, every company in the world has to prioritize things.
Exactly. And I'll be real honest with you, Derek. I want simpler things, man. I want to be able to buy a house with a little bit of land, and I want to be able to start a family.
I would love that, Jim. We were lied to. All of the things they tell you, you're going to go to college. Oh, then you're going to get a job. Then you're going to go find a family. And then you're going to go be able to buy a house and live that American dream that we talk so much about. But the reality is, you're paying $400,000 for a townhouse that's owned and operated by either an American company that's bought up all the land or a foreign company that's bought up all the land. One way or another, if you're a first-time home buyer, that's one of the most consequential things that you're thinking about. Some folks have paused their ability to start a family based on the fact that they don't want to have to be renters while they do that.
Yeah.
Some folks, they care more. They're like, we'll get through it. But here's the reality. I spent over $36,000 in rent in the time I lived in my apartment.
Yep.
I have nothing to show for it. My credit's not any better, even though I did everything right. Because and I'm going to be real gritty here. Here's the reality. Wake up, America. These companies found out during the pandemic that they could price gouge everything, from gas to milk to eggs to property. And they found out through inaction by the government, that they can continue it. That's the only reason gas is still $3.50. There's no oil shortage. That's the only reason land is at a premium. Not because there's so many people that want to buy, there's no houses. It's you sold them to companies and they get to control that market.
It's like diamonds. Like there's an excess of diamonds, but the companies that control the diamond market just throttle the supply.
Right. Like I've heard no conversation about climate change. Why would I start a family at 26 years old if it's not guaranteed that there will be a livable planet in 20 years? This is a real problem that a lot of folks, even if they're not climatologists, even if they're not like the hippie liberal, like, oh, it's all about climate, man. The reality is, folks are seeing it this summer. It is getting hotter than it's ever been. We're seeing hurricanes. It is July 5th. There's not supposed to be hurricanes of Cat 2-3 caliber this early in the season. That's into July, August. We are seeing the changes that they booed Al Gore off the stage in the 90s because it was a political talking point that climate is just, we're big oil. We don't want none of that.
I think even if you don't look at the climate, because I think to a certain extent, like the climate argument is tough because it's been so heavily politicized. But even if you look at like, God, fucking, microplastics have been, found in like literally every male on the planet. And like the link between that and chronic illnesses and birth defects is huge. And, I think to a certain extent, like our lack of ability to regulate the health and safety of our food sources, the health and safety of our water sources, of our air, not just as a nation, but also as a world, is really shocking to me and really very short-sighted, I think. And the fact that, our presidential candidates aren't even talking about that is really alarming to me because, this might sound kind of trite, but like, I remember growing up in Atlanta, around Atlanta, and I remember like when I was a kid, there were fireflies out in the yard, and like, God, I just felt like as I got older, there were less and less fireflies. And I come to find out later, that's because there were in fact less and less fireflies.
Yeah. It's too hot. It messes up their birth cycles.
Yeah. And also like the pollution and habitat loss. And I just find myself thinking now that and maybe this is because I'm getting a little bit older and like starting a family is something that I've kind of decided that it's something that I would really like to do if I can. I really want my kid to be able to see fireflies and play in a field like I did. and I want them to be able to have, a robust outdoor childhood and a robust life in the outdoors, in a healthy climate, and not to have to worry about like the rainwater not being drinkable. Like, did you know that rainwater is no longer safe to drink almost anywhere in the world?
It doesn't surprise me.
Right? Like that's how much pollutants we've managed to pump into our atmosphere. And I think regardless of whether or not you're a Republican or a Democrat, or you believe in climate change or not, the fact that rainwater, which is basically distilled by the climate, is no longer pure enough to meet like regular drinking standards.
I read about that. The hydrolytic system is a filter. Like
it is.
Groundwater.
We've plugged the filter.
Jim, like we've talked about this in private multiple times, because engineering and biology, I think, it's a very strict relationship. They both controlled by physics, right?
Yep.
The world got a free trial of what it would be like if if all humans stayed inside for a little while. During 2020, we saw in New York, all of a sudden, you can see the next city over, because the smog's lifted. In parts of China that haven't had natural sunlight consistently, all of a sudden it's a bright, sunny day, right? But because, governments are freaking nailing people into their apartments, that's the part that makes the news.
That's the ugly part of it.
Jim, can I tell you what I would do? Let's just say it all worked out, right? If I were a powerful man, this is my idea. Back in the 60s, there was this thing called the International Geophysical Year. It was pretty much a big science fair for all of the countries that wanted to participate. I understand now with espionage and all of the leaks and people trying to keep their proprietary information. I get it, but there should be incentive for all world governments to collaborate at least on climate change. If we can't agree on all of the cultural aspects of how governments run, whatever, we should at least be able to agree that the planet is dying, and it's our fault. It's our fault. Since the Industrial Revolution, we have data to prove it is corporate greed that causes this.
Yeah.
And my only if we could just have 1 5-year period where science and engineers, I don't care if you're the professional or the guy in his garage, if you have an idea, you get the rich folks to fund it, and we start working and chipping away at this mess we've put ourselves in, so that instead of arguing about my child's gender and what should be approved or not, making sure that they can go fucking frolic in a field despite what their gender is, despite what they want to be sexually. That stuff, we can cross that bridge later. I think all humans should have, if you're not hurting nobody, you should have the right to do what you want. Cut and dry. My view on the world is fairly simple. If you're not actively hurting someone else, it's not affecting somebody else, why should it matter? Why should the government have to get involved? I think the government should be there to protect, not to, dictate. Force folks into not dictate. What's the extrapolation of the word dictate? Dictator. Like we're playing a dangerous game by forgetting the climate. I'm going to jump on this just towards the end of our podcast, because this one's different. We've never done this, Jim. Would you agree?
Have not. This is definitely whoops all politics.
Oops all politics. We had an episode today. And
I will say also, like, I think this is maybe not even whoops all politics. I think this is
oops all worried.
Whoops. Yeah. Like whoops. Jim and Derek are concerned about the future. Right. I think this is part of the problem, is that, like, I don't think that people realize, and even in this conversation, like, I think that we have to be very careful about, like, how we approach our political, I don't even want to call them political opponents, right? Because I don't think they are, right?
No,
they are.
There should be no enemies within the American citizenship. That's my opinion.
And I think, like, this is obviously something we're very passionate about, and I think it's very understandable, because, like, it directly affects the things that I think matter the most to us, which is our futures and our lives and our families and our ability to live the American dream, right? It makes sense to be passionate about this. You should be passionate about this.
How can you tell me to plan for a future that's illogical?
Yeah, but at the same time, like, we have to figure out together, like, how can we make that future possible, right? Like, and I think part of the problem that I see is that our government has been so co-opted by by private interest, and corporations, that it's so hard to see how that government actually is reflective of us as Americans and the actual problems that we're concerned about, right? Because to a certain extent, like, and this might sound a little callous, but like, if I could have, like if we could afford homes and feel secure that, we can go out and not be oppressed for our political beliefs or the color of our skin or our religious beliefs or ideologies or political views. Honestly, like a lot of the other stuff just falls in line on its own.
I have to agree with you.
Like if I can afford the house that I wish that I could afford, and like I don't think that I'm a lazy guy, right?
No, you work harder than anyone I know, but that's the key. You were told as a child, if you work hard and you stick with it, these things will be available to you. These are the fruits of your labor, right?
Right.
And like you said, it hasn't been true. Folks are going to college, getting hundreds of thousands of dollars of student loans just to get hundreds of thousands of dollars in loans for the house they can't afford. Where does that put them 20 years from now? Yes, they have the thing they want, but do they feel safe? Do they feel secure?
And also, like, can we do life effectively? I mean, right? Because I think part of this too is like you look at like the aging demographic of this country.
Yeah, we have a birth rate problem.
We have a birth rate problem. And why do we have, and maybe this again, like, take it with a grain of salt, right? Because I don't really know. Like, I'm just a guy, right? I'm just some dude who has kind of like felt this squeeze of our current reality, right? Where, man, like I've been driving a 60-year-old truck for 8 months. Not quite, since Thanksgiving. Yeah, 8 months. I've been driving a 60-year-old truck for 8 months. And I'm glad that I've been driving it and I'm glad that it's been working, but like, it's because I can't afford a vehicle.
Right. Before we can talk about the EV question,
like I can't afford a Tesla.
$45,000 for something
that's out of the question. Yeah, like that's completely out of the question, right?
Exactly.
Like and again, like I don't want to get too pitiable, but I think a lot of people are in the situation that I am in, and I think a lot of people are like, I can't even afford a car without having to take out a huge amount of debt for it. And not even a new car
recently. I bought an old car recently because I was like, I want to live a little. But the reality of my situation is I'm probably going to have to sell it. Not because I'm not making the payments. I've paid it more than half off. But the reality is I need that money more for taking care of not even my property, taking care of my grandfather's property, because we don't got any help. And let me say something before I lose it. You mentioned something about, the decline in the aging population, right? America, let me be straight with you. I'm a biologist. I'm not a professional. I'm not a PhD. I have a basic Bachelor of Science. This is a problem that's been brought up multiple times in various parts of the world. You want to solve your birth rate problem without being a fucking dictator? Make women feel safe. Full stop. You make women feel safe? Let some time pass? That is a problem that will resolve itself. But right now, the truth of many countries, women do not feel safe. And unfortunately, in America, the Republican Party is politicizing women's bodies because I'm looking at it like, I'm just going to call it like I see it. Forgive me, Jim. I'm going to call it like I see it. They're looking at the birth rate problem and saying, this is a regulation problem. If I can control their body, I can make more babies. And unfortunately, they're not wrong. But that is a horrifying reality that we've seen not work in other regimes. So you make women feel safe and have the rights they need, kids will happen. Right now, no one feels comfortable making a family. No one feels comfortable going, like, I know some of the biggest hoes I ever met ain't hoeing no more. Because it's too dangerous. It's too dangerous. Folks are feeling a strain. They're feeling a strain that they're unable to explain. Right, Jim? Whether it be housing, their own rights, what does the future look like? These were questions we could answer fairly easy, I'd say 8 years ago.
Yeah.
But now, it's unsure. It's unclear. The fog of war, so to speak, of the future. And this election, I'm not saying it's the end all be all, because I'm not going to be one of those fatalists that says if Trump wins, it's all over. No, we've survived him once, we'll survive him again. Here's the reality. Will things change after Trump and Biden? After this, can we get on both sides some fucking options?
Yeah, I try to remain ever hopeful, because I think as much as we have problems with the American system, especially as I think it has been in recent years, I've traveled a little bit of the country, and what comes up again and again, at least in my experience, and I will admit that I, for a number of reasons, have probably had a very good experience as America. But I have been met again and again with the kindness of strangers. I truly believe, down to the marrow of my bones, that the people of this country are excellent people. That doesn't mean they're always right. It doesn't mean they're always good. But I think, to a very fundamental level, the people of this country are amazing, resilient, and kind, on the whole. So I actually have a great deal of optimism for our ability to solve these problems, because I do think that as a culture, and I think you see this on both sides, really, I do think that you see these, people starting to realize that this system is not working, right? Like, this is not how this was supposed to be. I think that discourse is alive and well. And I really am hopeful that we will see things turn around. And I think it will take time, and I think it may be painful. I'm sure that it will be a painful process. But I actually remain extremely optimistic about the future of America. And I think it's because, again, we have, and maybe I will be, I hope that I am not proven wrong, but I think it's because we have such a strong tradition of basically when the chips are down, we look out for our own. At the end of the day, if an American is stuck overseas, we're going to get them. At the end of the day, if somebody is on the street, somebody is going to help them, right? Whether that's the government, whether that's the churches, whether that's, whatever it is.
Nonprofits, whatever, yeah.
Yeah, I think Americans consistently are kind of polled or rated or whatever as donating the most to charity out of anybody in the world. Right, like the American population donates enormous amounts of money to charity. I think the people of this nation want a bright future. I think that as a nation, as a people, we crave the American dream. It's in our blood, right? I mean, how could it not be? you know? And so I think, as much as it is painful now, I think that we will be able to solve these problems.
Jim, for all of our sake, right? I hope you're right.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that we can let our guard down.
No, but I hope you're right. I hope that, I admire you for even seeing all this, because you're not the kind of person to just ignore stuff. Some folks, that's an easy defense mechanism. I used to do it. But when it comes to this politics and my family, I can't look away. It's not to say that it's all I'm doing, right? That's not fair. But when these events happen, it's important to pay attention. And I just urge all Americans from this election forward to remember the word compromise, right? We can agree to disagree. We can put our agendas aside for the greater good. I don't think we've lost that. And I can only hope that there is a situation in the near future where I'm not seeing folks lean in so hard politically. Maybe you don't need matching uniforms. Replacing, in my head, whether it's a hat or an armband, you still look like a fascist. And if you want to be an American, truly, the same kind of America that you grew up believing existed, for one moment, understand that it's not Americans versus Americans. It doesn't have to be, by any means. In this American Civil War, there wasn't that much foreign adversary, kind of putting their 2 cents. And of course they had agendas, but now with the internet, a Russian bot farm could tell you everything to believe for 6 months. And if I tell you objectively, hey, these folks that you've been following, this is Chinese news. Nothing against China, but the government controls their news. And you're a senator. Like, you're on the record quoting fucking Daily Mail or some shit from China, or Sunkiss, whatever the hell it's called. And it's just like, I think we need to bring back shame. I think these politicians should have the capability of being ashamed of themselves, because right now they're shameless, and it fucking shows.
It does.
And I don't think until that changes, where their constituents are holding them accountable, not the Democrats holding your constituents accountable, not the other side of the aisle, but you as a voter saying, oh no, I don't stand for that. Get out of here. They're doing it in the worst ways possible. I saw a story where, was it North Carolina? They fired all of their women Republican representatives there because they would not vote against, birth control for their constituents, because that's something they care strongly about. Instead of actually listening to these women who are going to their constituents and telling them, this is the top priority for us. Even if it's not me and if it's not me and Jim's top priority, it is the top priority for a majority. 50% of the population's women. 50% of the population deserve to have their own rights. Roe v. Wade wasn't perfect, but the fact that it was stripped away is a dangerous precedent. Because I think, just from thinking about black history, because that's my frame of reference, who's next, right? When they stopped messing with blacks at the same, like after 64, 68, we had the Civil Rights Acts written up. Things didn't get better for decades. They didn't get better for decades. They're getting better, but you can log in and see the next police state shooting on an unarmed black man. So as a woman, we have to listen to our counterparts here. It's not for us to define the narrative. It's not for us to say, this is what it needs to be. No, listen to these women. Stop firing them. They're the ones that are stepping across the party aisle to say, hey, women are scared right now, and rightfully so. What are we going to do about it? And I just don't think, like you said, there's a priority of these events. I think that should have been the top priority of both sides, this debate. That should have been the one counterpoint. Like, honestly, forget Trump's many felonies and stuff. That can wait. I think justice will work. I like to believe that. Even if I'm wrong, I have to force myself to believe that there's due process. But we got to start listening to our citizens. And I put myself in, if I were in the situation where I'm looking at the Jim Crow laws get, done for the first time, I'd be terrified for my family. I'd be horrified. I wouldn't want to leave my house. And I just wonder, and I'd love to hear women's opinion on this if they're willing to say the same thing they've been saying. That's a top priority and no one's talking about it. So it begs the question, America, Jim, Everything's a Spring listeners, if they're going to take their rights, who's next? And are you willing to sit down quietly while that happens? If I lose my job because of this podcast, at least I knew I spoke my truth. At least I know I thought about this situation objectively. Say Levine.
It is the way it is. I think I want to end on a note of optimism, because I
admire you for that, Jim. I seriously admire you for that.
I think that the fact that we're having this, and maybe we don't, I don't know if we publish this or not. I think it may be important to, and here's why. I think I don't think our arguments are perfect. I think we're
not political scientists.
We're not political scientists. We're not even, we're not even 30.
Yeah, I can't run for president, right?
But I think what's important about this is that we, as two citizens who love this country dearly, at least I can speak for myself, and I think I can speak for you.
I love what this country's supposed to be. I can't say I'm in love with it today.
I think that we have a lot of things that we need to work on as a nation, but fundamentally, I love America very, very deeply. Because I think I can see what it could be.
Yeah,
right.
It's the dream, right?
There's the dream, right? But I think people are not stupid. And while there are people who are so far into these cults of personality that have popped up around Trump and around Biden and around, AOC and around Senator Hawley, fundamentally, I believe that a great majority of Americans are seeing these blatant hypocrisies and they're seeing this for what it is, and they're seeing the corporate greed that is ruining this, that is really stealing the American dream away from the American people for profit. People are waking up to that. And I think, like, I guess I'll go on to my political tangent here now. I think, like, the success of the RFK candidacy is proof of that. You know, the fact that we have a third party candidate who is polling double digits, 15, 16, 17, almost 20%, speaks volumes about and he's been completely shut out of the mainstream, right? Like, let's keep that in mind too.
He couldn't even debate.
He was not allowed to debate on, well, anyways, you can see my bias coming through.
Yeah, like him or not, it's the fact that there was another option. Good or bad, whatever you think, but America has decided that our political system is binary, and I use the word decided very specifically because it was not suggested by the founders. When you read some of those Federalist Papers, it was not the consensus of the groups that wrote these documents. It was never a part of the plan. But, as it turns out, it's easier to control through a binary where, if I can just say they're wrong and evil.
Tribalism is so powerful, and I think we see that day to day. And that's the reason that we're stuck with two senile old men, who are trying to bicker about their golfing scores.
I'm calling it for what I see, man. Like, they both have bad moments. It's harder to say they both have good moments. They can both read a teleprompter, but how low must we lower the bar? How low is too low?
Yeah, no, like, we absolutely should be demanding more from our leaders. Again, like, only, and I think this is amazing because, like, I have stuff, like, popping up in my, YouTube suggestion stuff that's going viral now from, the 2012, 2008 debates, Mitt Romney, Obama, John McCain, even George W. Bush. They're just so much better spoken.
They're sharper. And I know that even if they're lying, at least they're there. You know what I mean? They're all their mental acuity was never in question. If it was more of like I'm gonna swipe at you instead of an actual genuine concern.
But even the quality of the debate, right? Like, even the quality of the discourse was, I think, stronger. And
it felt like a debate, not an argument. You know
exactly.
what I mean?
Yeah. Like, there was point and counterpoint.
I didn't have to have a timer on screen and mute your mic to get realistically both sides of the story. They could just, be normal ass people.
Yeah. But anyway, we've flapped lungs long enough, I think. But I just want to come back and I want to say that I really do believe in the American people to fix the American process, right? And it's not going to be easy, and it might not be fun, and it's probably not going to be safe, which sucks. But I have a tremendous amount of hope for the future. And I have to,
A fairly somber note, but I think we'll decide between us if we release this, but I do think it's an important conversation to have, even if just privately. So, Jim, I'm sorry to side rail you with the. I know.
No, it's okay.
Episode.
It's okay. We've got time. We got all the time in the world. Again, oops! All Jim and Derek being concerned about the future, because I think that's really where this is born out of. And I think this is.
If we weren't concerned, we wouldn't talk about it.
Yeah, and I think it's, to a certain extent, it's concern, and to a certain extent, it's almost a cry for help, man. At least for me, like it's.
This is the closest I'll get to begging.
Yeah. It's
I'm asking my counterparts all around to think. In a time where they're telling you to shut down and stop looking, avert your eyes.
Follow the party line.
Yeah, fall in step or get out. No. That's not what democracy is about. It's discourse.
Yes.
It's you're my brother, right? We don't have to agree on everything. We can fight in the schoolyard, but the second someone else puts their hands on you, we're scrapping for you. You know? All Americans. I don't have to agree with you to think you're worth something. And I think we've lost that fundamental part because
a lot of people have.
Everyone's fighting behind a keyboard. It's all fun and games on the internet because, you don't know who you're talking to. You could be talking to a bot. We've talked about it already. But I'm just urging Americans to be objective for once. It's okay to admit you made a mistake, right? It's okay to admit you voted for the wrong guy. That's part of it. That's part of it. But you shouldn't have to fear for your democracy because of it. We've put ourselves in this position. I think the Democratic and Republican parties should take responsibility for letting it get to this point, because the voters can do so much. At the end of the day, as Jim stated earlier, as I've stated, they make decisions based on what they want to do. So now my question as a voter, past Trump and Biden, what are you going to do next to avoid bloodshed? I don't think it's going to come to that, but I got folks on both sides very publicly talking about it. I've never been scared of, like, you know, I've been scared of cops. I'll be honest. Like, as a black guy, I've been afraid, I'm going to be sleeping and, you know, someone kicks down my door. I think it's a robber and I fire on them and I shot a cop and now I'm dead. I've worried about getting pulled over in the wrong state. It's always been versus the government. But I've never once been afraid of my American counterparts, as crazy as that sounds. I know people rob and steal and whatever, but it's never been forefront in my mind. I've never thought about local militias. I've never thought about being called an insurgent or whatever. So I think we should push calm in a place where there is none. And like Jim said, I am going to try to be as mature as Jim and hope for the best. But I'll admit, I am preparing for the worst, if not just mentally.
And I think that's not a bad way to approach it either. But anyways,
we'll be a happier engineering podcast next episode, we promise. Or maybe you'll never hear this, but
you may not. They may not.
With fear for our democracy, let's bounce.
Let's bounce, Derek. Love you, buddy.
Love you too, Jim.